Hey guys, it's Leah. I am here with the GOAT, greatest of all time, my husband Chris, and he agreed for me to interview him about our breastfeeding journey. So buckle up, here we go. Hey guys, it's Leah and you're watching Mommy in the Moment. Welcome back to our breastfeeding series in honor of Black Breastfeeding Week. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you can see when I post new videos. And today we are going to talk about the support partner's role in breastfeeding. So how can you support someone who is breastfeeding for the first, second, third time? And so we'll go through a couple of questions with my wonderful hubby Chris here, who was absolutely instrumental in our breastfeeding being successful. So first of all, Chris, what would you say was your experience or exposure to breastfeeding before we had Lucas?
Well, prior to Lucas, I know that I was breastfed as a child, and my sister also breastfed with her children as well. And that was my first introduction to actually seeing and it being part of my own life experience. Short of that, I've never seen or heard anybody else doing anything like that.
Yeah.
It's never been a part of my life short of those two things.
All right, and then what would you say was the most surprising thing or the hardest thing about breastfeeding, either watching it happen or what do you think about the whole process? What was the most difficult part?
Well, I know the process of getting the child to latch after they first come out is very difficult in the emotional process because you really want to feed that baby and producing enough to make sure that you're feeding your child. And just along those same lines, you have the issue of what was surprising for me was engorgement. The fact that, the pain and the pressure that happened, just listening to the child cry, being close, and just feeling the need to either pump or feed the baby. And didn't look fun for her.
It was rocky.
Yeah.
It was rocky. I think one of the biggest things that you did for me during that time was offer solutions, even if you didn't know exactly what to do. You didn't just say, well, let's throw in the towel and feed the baby formula. Like, you were with me in that, to the point where he actually, when I wasn't sure if I should be pumping or not, he made this contraption with pillows. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
With pillows on the floor and breast milk collection bottles with the funnels. And he's like, all right, lay on your stomach and let the milk just drip into these collection bottles. In retrospect, I should have just pumped. But he was being thoughtful and helping to make solutions so that we could get the milk out so I wasn't in horrible pain and the baby could eat. So I think that was huge. All right, and so you got kind of thrown in, kind of trial by fire. I was still in training whenever we had Lucas, and I only had 8 weeks of maternity leave. So I had to go back to taking 24-hour overnight call pretty quickly after he was born. How was that experience for you?
Well, you get your mind right. It's not very difficult to conceptualize that something's about to happen. Somebody got to take care of that baby. Might as well be me. So
The only gonna be you.
Right. I can't. I could not lean on anybody else to do it. And plus, it's my child. So you use that period. If anything, it's a benefit because it gives you the opportunity to feel like you're bonding with the child.
Yeah.
That's the time that you have. You're not going to get that back. So there are so many things that happen prior to the child even being born that your wife is going to experience. And the mere fact that you get to spend isolated time, or at least I was blessed to have that isolated time with my children, it was great for me. It didn't bother me at all. It was like, it was work, but you find methods in order to get around the work, in order to find daddy comfort and parenting.
Good job. All right, now another thing that I think was unique to our situation was a lot of times when I was on call, you would bring the baby into the hospital. This was pre-COVID. There was no COVID
No
going
COVID.
on. There was no COVID-19.
Nope.
But you would bring the baby into the hospital, and you would take what I had pumped, so like it could be refrigerated at home, and you would bring the baby to me hungry.
Yeah.
That was huge. Or if you knew I was coming home, I would say, "Hey, I'm on my way. Don't feed him yet."
Yeah.
And you would hand me a hungry baby. The only worst thing than pumping is pumping while you're looking at your baby sitting there. It's awful. So you did a really good job with that too, making sure we timed it so that baby was feeding directly from the breast as much as possible.
Well, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah. You got to do something.
Yeah. All right. Now, you also did a lot of kind of management of pump parts and frozen milk versus refrigerated milk and bottle cleaning and all that kind of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Well, you got to keep the materials clean, for the breast pump and the bottles and all that jazz. I mean, there's even the boiling of the bottles, because those have to stay clean. And you can't just put stuff like that in the dishwasher and hope it's good enough for a newborn child. And the reason why it was important for me to handle some of that stuff is because it gives my spouse the time to get ready, to adjust to her day, extra sleep, and to share the load, because there are also times when she was on call, I had to do it whether she was here or not. So knowing those things were important in order for us to work as a team, in order to make sure that our child was making it the way that we wanted it to happen.
Right.
So.
And I had a contribution, a story that was told to me by one of my friends, where she had twins that were born early, and they were in the NICU for a while. And she would pump. Her husband was amazed by how her milk supply went from very little to medium to like just overflowing. And he would label everything and take it to the NICU and put it where it needed to be. And so he was really involved in that process, especially as she was at home and healing from her delivery. He was really involved in that. He also mentioned doing a lot of the pump cleaning, using either sterilizer bags, or they even use a sterilize cycle on the dishwasher. So things to make it easier, putting the pump parts in the refrigerator so that you only really have to clean and sterilize them once a day instead of having to do it every single time you pump, because as the milk is refrigerated, it's not gonna go bad. So all these things were really good ways to support your partner while they're doing one of the hardest things their body is ever gonna have to do, which I think is pretty huge. Now, we didn't have the experience of having people in our lives who were not supportive of breastfeeding, but what would you say to somebody who their partner is really going through a lot with getting negative messages and negative feedback about their breastfeeding? What do you feel like the partner's role would be in that situation?
The partner's role is to help reestablish boundaries, because this is a boundary issue. And if you're starting to feel uncomfortable, that's because somebody is encroaching upon your boundaries. They're inside your bubble, and the bubble is you, your child, and your partner. And that's family. Now, you can have extended family, you can have other friends or people who are close and important to you, but ultimately it's about your family, it's about your relationship, it's about you protecting that. And that's going to come naturally for you to want to respond in a way. Now, you can do that appropriately, go through the methods and being nice and all that jazz, but ultimately, it's none of their business. So you handle that the way that you feel best, but just protect your family. That shouldn't be a very difficult thing to conceptualize when protecting the people that you love.
Later for the haters.
Yes.
Do you.
Right.
It's a family affair.
Yeah. It's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about coming upon this again, do you have any new thoughts about us going through this a third time?
No.
Yeah, it's going to happen, right?
It's going to happen. And I mean, it also just happens naturally. You just respond. You have to be flexible. You have to adapt with kids. to give you a hard and concrete concept of how to deal with a snowflake child. Nah. You just have to be flexible. You have to be willing to accept that you are adulting and taking care of a child.
And you can't compare
Yeah.
each child. Like Lucas was very different than Nora, and this child will likely be very different. One of my good friends mentioned that when she responded to one of my questionnaires is you can't compare the children to each other. So this process is like a relationship. Every relationship is different. And that's going to be for me and the baby and for you and the baby.
That's right.
Oh, you were saying something about how sometimes it felt like, oh, you really wish that you could bond with the baby in the same way. What were you saying that you had thought about doing?
Well, it was a bit of a joke, but at the same time, all jokes have a little kernel of truth to it. I did some research on, like men, like in breastfeeding and so forth, and they actually have these little custom-made breasts that
Like
you
the
can,
harness that you can
could
put on?
and that you could place on yourself as breasts. Obviously, they're fake, and the bottle can actually go on the inside of it, and you could feed the child as if you were breastfeeding. Now that's a bit extreme. Just to put it, I didn't buy it. The point being here is that I conceptualized it because it was kind of an interesting concept, not necessarily something I wanted to do, but realizing that it was an experience, walking through it and seeing my wife going through it and how it connected them as mom. And dads don't really have that same type of connection. You know what I'm saying? It's completely different. I feel like my bonding process is a very slow simmer. As they grow older and they get to know me a little bit more and we can talk. With mommies, it's already there. It's been there since they were conceived. It's been happening. So you have a bit of a pinch of a desire. Doesn't mean that it's not as good. It's just different. It's different spice on that.
Yeah, and I did see a lot of comments about people saying that, or partners saying that they were more bonded to the baby that they were able to feed. And so feeding is definitely, I feel like food is our love language in our relationship. But feeding does bond people. And so the woman gets to do that from the breast, and the partner, may or may not have that opportunity. You did, because I had a lot of periods where I was just gone. But true. I think maybe making ways for the partner to be able to be involved in that. The other thing would be expressing gratitude. I think that one thing that we've done in our relationship is we say thank you a lot, just in general, but thanking him for taking care of the kids while I'm gone, or thanking him for cleaning the pump parts, and him thanking me for feeding our children, and thanking me for going through hard things. Just that positive reinforcement was so huge. It made all the difference that the person that's closest to you in the world is saying thank you for doing these things for our children. So I think that would be a huge thing I would say to people, is make sure that you're always expressing gratitude to each other. It's
already a hard situation. It doesn't mean it can't be enjoyable. It just means that you just have to love each other in a different way. One other thing I would add, in connection to the whole bonding process, one of the things that they taught us was skin to skin. So what I would do is I would do a lot of skin to skin in order to make that connection between myself, and touch the little hands while the bottle is being put in there and their mouths, and helping them to feed, just touching them and making as much contact as possible, skin to skin. So as a father, one way to encourage the amount of bonding that you can get, just touch that baby with your skin. Just hug that baby, and you'll get it. You'll get the warm fuzzies. There's no way you're not going to get them.
Well, it sounds like our children are supposed to be asleep, but they're not.
Nope.
So we're going to go handle that. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this, definitely press the like button. Comment down below, what are the things that you wish your partner had done? What are the things that you're grateful that your partner had done? Let us know and share those things down below so that we can build this kind of community resource in the comment section. All right, guys, thanks again for watching. Subscribe to the channel and we'll give you more good stuff. All right, bye.
Bye.